You guys, you are watching a Goggler exclusive. We are the only Southeast Asian media outlet to score an exclusive extended interview with Steven Soderbergh, where we spoke to him about everything from his latest movie, No Sudden Move, on HBO, to the state of a post pandemic Hollywood, to, of course, his Oceans movies. Check it out.
Stephen, here's my 30-second review, right? The best crime fiction I find aren't procedurals or whodunits, and they're these character pieces that are sociological investigations that are disguised as these shaggy dog stories, and you nail it with this movie. From that glorious classic WB logo to David Holmes's score, which is like one part Noah and one part spaghetti western, I was completely immersed from the first frame. So thank you very much for that. It was great. Now, I promised my colleagues that I wasn't going to spend 20 minutes just talking about the Oceans movies. So we'll talk about No Sudden Move. I never know what I'm going to get with the Steven Soderbergh movie, from Aaron Brockovich all the way, to Magic Mike, The Laundromat. I'm curious as to how you choose the movies you do. And are they just a reflection of your preoccupations at any given time?
Yeah, the long answer is yes. And that for me, there has to be some aspect, even if it's supposed to be a piece of pure entertainment, some aspect that locates it in the actual world. And that can be a challenge because you don't want it to distract from the central narrative, which should be a very simple, straightforward narrative. And that's the case here. There's something that Don Cheadle's character wants, and the movie is about watching him try to get what he wants. It was just our good luck that when Ed discovered this story about this technology that was being suppressed, that it took place at a time in a location that was deeply fascinating and very American in its scale. I feel we got very lucky when Ed found this story that we then built this fake behind the curtain activity.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it when a piece of entertainment has secret history within it. It's absolutely fantastic because it sends me down this Google rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
And what about genre? Because you've dabbled in so many different kinds. I'm curious as to whether genre is something that you're obsessed with or something you just don't really care about.
Oh no, I'm very cognizant of it because it's so efficient. It's a great delivery system for all kinds of ideas. It has certain foundation. There are certain pillars to certain genres, but then you have the opportunity either to respect them or update them or subvert them completely in a way that's surprising. So it just seems like I'm always looking for how to marry a subject that I'm interested in with a genre that I think is going to be really efficient in putting the narrative out.
I was looking through your oeuvre of work, and it feels like the only thing you haven't done yet is a superhero story, which everyone and their cousin seem to be doing right now. Is that something that interests you? It seems to be what everyone.
Well, I would call it fantasy, like pure fantasy. Like the closest I've ever gotten to that was Solaris. And that was, the scale of that was very intimate and its conceit very, very tight. In a weird sort of way, it was a very small universe for being a space movie, which explains a lot. But like I said, since coming out the other side of Che, I felt much more drawn to genre films and figuring out how to, as you said, insert my preoccupations into a sort of established structure.
Right. You pull triple duty on this thing, and I was curious if that was something that came about because of the pandemic, or was it something that you were always planning to do on this film?
No, I've been in that mode for a while now. I think the last, if I'm not mistaken,
was it Unsane? Did you do a lot on that?
Yeah, I did. I did all that there. It's been a while back. It might have been, I think Contagion was the last time I used another editor, and then The Limey was the last time I used another cinematographer. So this is a way of working that's really great for me, in that I'm kind of having two fewer conversations than I would normally have. And that's a lot. Like two separate conversations is a lot. That's a lot of time. Now, so that means sometimes people are wondering what's going on, but I'm supported by people that as soon as I'm able to describe, what I'd like to do, it comes together very, very quickly. So it's this movie was, we were one of the early large scale productions to shoot during COVID. And that took a while to get oriented to the physicality of it, the psychology of it. It was strange for a little while, and then you get used to it. Like after a couple of weeks, you're used to the mask, you're used to all the rules, you're used to everything just takes longer. But it was the first couple of weeks, I think, for everybody. It was just you had to get used to it.
And you can't tell, right? I mean, this isn't like a Malcolm and Marie or like the Anne Hathaway lockdown film where it's intimate. I could see the scale in this film, and I couldn't tell that it was a COVID production, which was great. A bunch of different actors have been attached to this movie at one point or another, and when that changes, how much does that change in your mind with how the movie will look and feel? Or, for example, when Clooney dropped out, does it just mean that this other actor is filling in that character in that space?
Well, look, my attitude is always you get who you're supposed to get, and that things are going to shift. People might say no, that you can't let yourself be slowed down. You just need to, reorient and think about who you'd like next. And it's once you've, in this case, it was conceived for Don Cheadle, and Don Cheadle said yes. In a way, that kind of determines almost everything else.
Right.
So you start shrinking down and finding these people. And it's a combination of people that Carmen has worked with before and likes. It could be somebody that she hasn't worked with yet that she thinks has real potential. It could be somebody that I've worked with before that I want to work with again. It's very fluid, and you're going on your instinct of, do they belong in that frame or do they not?
A couple of big picture questions for you. I was curious as to the general feeling, I guess, in Hollywood coming out of this pandemic now. Is there a sense that people are just hanging around waiting for things to go back to the way they were? Or do you get a sense that these last 2 years have really changed the industry?
Well, it's too early to tell. I think this general question of what movies mean now, or if movies matter now in the way that they used to matter in our memory, I don't think we'll know the answer to that until we're further into a world in which people truly have the option and feel comfortable going to the movies. Right. But having said that, there's an opportunity, I think, that I don't know how to execute, honestly, to remind people of why movies are great and why we love going to the movies, and that's a healthy psychological thing to do, to go to see a movie and be there with 400 people that are strangers and experience something together, a thing. You're only looking at one thing. You're staring at one screen, which is
Absolutely
unusual and is good for you, I think. So can we, as we try to entice people back to the theater, is there a way to enhance their feeling for the movies? I don't know. It just seems like there's an opportunity there.
I think people miss it. I
do
genuinely think they do. Yeah. And I don't know if much work needs to be done to convince people to go back to cinemas. I have this idea that we may see a division of what makes it to the big screen and what makes it to the small screen, because everyone kind of has had a taste of that over this last year with, oh, let's put that on Netflix, or let's sell that movie to Amazon Prime or something. And being someone who's worked, with Netflix, with Warren, I mean, this thing's coming out on HBO Max and in cinemas. We're watching it on HBO over here because we're still in lockdown, so cinemas aren't open yet. What has your experience been in that? Do you think there should be or do you think there will be oh, look, Black Widow, that thing's going to be IMAX, that thing's going to be a cinema release, but maybe No Sudden Move might be on streaming? I mean, is that a kind of categorization that you play with in your mind?
No, I don't. I'm only looking for a home. And so if, the reality of the business is a mid-range movie for grown-ups like No Sudden Move, in terms of theatrical potential, it's not big enough to justify that budget level. The platform can justify that budget level because of the eyeballs it'll generate in subscription, all that. It works. So I'm sort of just, in the tunnel looking for a light to follow, because it's all shifting so rapidly. And, it's really, people are really trying to figure out what this business is going to look like even 6 months from now. It's really fluid.
If you forgive a very naive question, does Steven Soderbergh still have that problem? In the sense that if you make a mid-budget movie for adults, isn't it easier to sell?
Oh, it depends. It just depends. People say no to me all the time. I mean, that's the danger. There's a tendency when you're facing this kind of complexity to apply a template to just, organize all this information and activity. But the bottom line is, every project is unique, and it's just, and it's so unpredictable what people will respond to. Like, that's what makes it fun, but it's unpredictable.
Just to go back a little bit to the beginning of this pandemic, Contagion just took off in a weird and prescient way, right? I'm just curious as to what that was like for you, with it trending #1 on the Netflix charts and everyone watching it all over the world. Was it just something you did at the time, or did you genuinely believe that this caught my fancy and this is something that could happen to us?
Well, this was an idea that was proposed by Scott Burns. Would you be interested in making a movie about a pandemic? And I said, yeah. So that conversation started in 2009, 8 or 9. So that's an example of the unpredictability of how things reach you. This was just a conversation we were having, and this subject came up, and I said yes, and we started trying to develop it. But the idea that if there's anything predictive about the film, it's only because everybody we spoke to said, when the next one comes, it will probably go like this. They were all very consistent. So we were just listening to what we were being told. And we tried our best to at least explain how complex the challenge is to solve this problem, you know, and what kind of people are doing those jobs. That's what that's what we wanted to focus on more than like mass scale. Like we wanted to keep it really intimate.
Weirdly enough, the least predictable thing about the pandemic and the one that we're living through right now is that we would end up being our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And I think no one predicted the fact that the US government themselves might be a hindrance to actually solving this pandemic.
Well, we certainly didn't imagine that. That was something we missed when we were making Contagion. We never imagined a situation like that.
Yeah. I've been told to wrap, and so I've got to ask at least one Ocean's question before I go. I'm a huge fan of the movies. I see it all the time. I've lost friends over my love for Ocean's 12.
I'm sorry.
We get into a lot of fights, but very quickly, do you see those stories as being done? As in, are those characters done, or is that something that you've always wished to revisit just because of how you reinvigorated the genre and, like you said earlier, kind of gave it new life?
Well, I wouldn't know what to do. For me, when Bernie Mac left us, that was my direct involvement in an Ocean's film ended. Right. So I helped on Ocean's 8 out of sort of a respect for the people involved and an idea that I thought was really fun and absolutely in line with the spirit of the franchise. And so, but when Bernie died, that was it.
Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Congratulations on No Sudden Move. I'm hoping we get to see it on the big screen. It's a wonderful film. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Why are you doing this, man?
Because I'm going to get what's mine.
We hope you enjoyed that interview. Don't forget to check out our other chats on YouTube. We spoke to other cast members of the movie No Sudden Move. Don't forget to tell us what you thought of the film in the comments below. Also like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. You know what to do.